My name's Alexis, here with Optional, optional.com, optional.org we changed it to actually. But yeah, the idea is that people always talk about recycling or driving less, even eating vegan, which is going to make a big impact. But to make the largest impact, 25 times more than going car-free, would be reducing the amount of children you plan to have. Having one fewer child actually contributes to 25 million tons less of carbon emissions, for example. So there's a lot of little things you can do, or you can just do one big thing, which would mitigate all the rest and be a larger impact. And the idea is to do it voluntarily. It's an option. We don't advocate any policy, one-child nation type of situation. It's more just education, so you understand what types of contraception or birth control are available, and then the option to opt out. Because in culture and society, religion, tradition, it's always get married, have a child, get married, have a child. It's just ingrained in us. So for me, myself, I haven't. I'm 39 now. I've had a vasectomy. I don't plan on having children. And there's always the idea of where's the purpose? Children give you purpose, but you could find purpose in many other aspects as well. So I find that in other areas. I don't need a child to satisfy that purpose, for example. And the other idea is, changing the way we perceive roles in society, keeping in mind other humans that already exist on the planet, current children that are homeless, that they could be adopted. You can adopt children, you can adopt animals, so you can still, if you need to take care, you have that motherly need or fatherly need to take care of another, you can take care of animals, you can take care of children, human children. They just don't have to be your own. If we try to an animal and a human, obviously a human has a far greater impact. Each one needs housing, food, clothing, utilities, medical, education, but we consume far more than any of the animals on the planet. And in developed countries like the US, every child has a much greater impact than, let's say, a child in India, right? That child born in that country is going to consume far less resources, far less energy than somebody else in a developed country. So the idea is to think individually instead of pointing at other countries and saying, look how many kids they're having. Well, they might have more kids and more of a population, but every single human in America or developed countries in Europe cause far more damage in terms of all this consumption that we require to survive and to live. And there are many countries that were considered undeveloped that are now developing towards US or European standards. So it's unsustainable and it's unethical given the many mouths that there already are to feed, so to continue reproducing more. There's got to be a shift eventually where that comes, because there can't, even though statistically they say there's going to be a bell curve where population will go down, but it's not a given, and even if it were to get to that point, it still doesn't justify all the children now that are starving or animals that are out there that we could help. I think my family tends to be a little more open, liberal, so I don't really get questions. It's more the jokes about, so when am I going to have a grandchild, but not very serious. I have 2 cats and they really understand that these are my children. It's society that is kind of forcing people into having children. Through things such as celebrating birthdays, the whole anniversaries and boys blue and yellow and all these maternity type things, parties and whatnot. It's just part of the culture really that is unnecessary. I think that if people weren't sort of told this story, this narrative of having children, they wouldn't miss this potential as much. It's kind of like artificially created through society, right? People could say I miss out on that, like my dad has said, but it's difficult for me to make that connection because I don't have a child. And I filled that void with other aspects in life. Yoga, meditation can be religion. And people already do this. There's no need to have children to be sort of find a purpose. I'm vegan, so I eat a whole food plant-based diet. I try to buy the least amount of plastic as possible. I try to drive an efficient vehicle, but I try to put my efforts where I know the most impact will be. So me not having a child is going to be more impactful than not using a plastic straw, for example. Me eating a plant-based diet is going to be more impactful than me not using a plastic straw, for example. me driving a hybrid car or electric car is going to have more than the plastic straw. So you've got to weigh those out. But it makes more sense to go to the one that is the most impact. If you're going to choose one, the plastic straw, or not have a child or eat plant-based, I mean, it makes sense logically to go with the one that has most impact. So part of this is education. We're not advocating for any type of laws or policies even implemented. No one-child policy type of thing they had in China. This is really about a voluntary option. If you don't have awareness of X, you may never choose X. People are often presented with options in society, but those options are filtered through funnels of tradition, education, culture, media, society. We could extend those options by opening it up really instead of what's just filtered down, right? The common denominator. We can talk about other areas. 50 years ago, the average woman had 5 children. Today, the average woman has 2.5. So even with only education of contraception and not an option not have children, the birth rate has gone down. It already has without talking openly about it. It's almost like talking about sex. People just taboo. People don't really want to open up to that. So we're kind of up against that.